Hello and welcome to our bonus episode, Tips in 10. On our main feature episode, we were speaking to David Ford about angel investing, and here we are. He's going to give us some of his top tips in how to go and get some of his money.
Yeah, so we're very excited to hear some secrets, David, on if you're just starting out, you're looking for funding and you want to go on your fundraising journey. What sort of tips and what sort of experience can you share with these people that are getting ready to take that leap?
I'm not sure I describe them as secrets, but yeah.
I feel like if you're just starting, it's interesting.
Because actually they shouldn't be secrets, of course. I think they should just be almost common sense and things to be aware of, because of course one of the issues as an entrepreneur or as a founder is that you're in your business and you're passionate about your product and you don't necessarily have any experience of raising finance. So I think the big thing for me is just be aware that you don't have to have all of the answers to all of the questions. An early stage investor is looking for a vision of the future and where you want to take the business. It's unrealistic for them to be asking financial projections for next 3 years, next 5 years. It's about communicating that vision and how you can demonstrate your passion and your idea and how you're going to execute on that idea rather than having answers to every little question.
So a little bit different to Dragon's Den, who say you have to know your numbers. And
exactly. I get quite frustrated with that because I think that's not realistic. Time and time again, every time you see what a company thought they were going to do at the start is nowhere near what they're going to end up doing 5 years on or 3 years on or whatever it happens to be. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, planning and budgeting is, you never get the answers right when you do it in the first place. And the longer you look forward, particularly with a startup, things changed. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. Things change. And I think that's my next point, which I think is choose your investors wisely. As an investor, we're selecting companies, we're selecting the best investment opportunity. But as a founder, you need to choose your investors as well, and preferably value-added investors. So they're not just bringing money, they might be bringing network or experience or contacts. But also you're going to be with that person for however long it takes to exit. So you need to bring them along for the ride and you need to have that relationship with them. So, you need to be, I think, very selective about who you're allowing into your business because it's a business relationship ultimately.
Yeah, and I see that a lot, encouraging clients to have board meetings and involve these non-execs or directors that come on board as investors, because you guys have got a wealth of experience that the business can lean on and leverage that experience to help them solve problems.
That's exactly right. And it's lonely enough being an entrepreneur, being a founder. So surround yourself with as many good people as possible, starting with your investors, and go from there. That's absolutely right.
And you're not queuing up outside their door with a blank check. So how would they find you? How would they approach you?
So I think there are online platforms, crowdfunding and the like, which I think works for a certain type of business where it's perhaps easy to explain, a consumer-facing business. For something more technical, like the kind of things I would invest in, I think that's difficult for crowdfunding. But there are angel networks. There's angel networks in Oxford, in London, elsewhere throughout the southeast. So I think that's a good opportunity to find a large number of investors and approaching some of those angel networks to go and pitch. And then very often after that, there are networking sessions, and that's how you can just embed yourself in the local sort of angel investing. Because
it's early stage, a lot of it is people-led, and it's all about that networking, building that relationship from day one.
Absolutely. Back to my vision point, it's about if you're asking people to buy into your vision, well, actually that's going to be, we're taking a lot on trust there. So actually always just coming back to relationship. That's absolutely right.
What sort of things do you look for in a pitch?
What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And is it a big enough problem? And is it innovative? You see a lot of Me Too ideas, incremental ideas, just a slight incremental improvement. I'm not really looking for those things. I'm looking for something that is, there's a big problem out there, no one's doing it, or maybe they're not doing it as well, and you're able to solve that problem. And if you're successful, then that's going to return many multiples of my investment. What's the ultimate market for that solution? And therefore, how does that then flow back into the investment return? And that's what you try, ultimately, that's what you're trying to communicate. Yes, Of course, the science is important, but certainly from my perspective, it's not about getting into the details of the science, for example. If you think of it in PowerPoint terms or slide terms, it's 5 to 10 slides, which is about, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's the team.
Yeah.
And that's basically it, right? It's very simplistic, but it's almost a case of who cares, who pays, who buys. And it's about that sort of, well, is there a problem there? And that's the cares point. Ultimately, who's going to pay for the product or
solution.
your drug or whatever, your solution, so who pays? And ultimately, therefore, who's going to buy your business at the end of that?
Okay.
And that's the way I try and think of it, just in those 3 very simplistic terms as a way of framing the opportunity.
That's very good. I like that.
And are there any red flags?
I'll answer it a slightly different way. The one thing that isn't a red flag is previous failure. I think that's absolutely not. I think we need to, that notion needs to be
First
dispelled.
attempt in learning.
Yeah, exactly right. Provided you've learned from
Yes.
learned from that experience and you're not making the same mistakes. So no, I think there are not red flags as such. I think there are things that make it harder to raise money from me or from other angels. Things like prefer a founding team rather than a solo founder. It's more nuanced than any particular sort of hard red lines or something like that, but absolutely not previous failure.
Yeah, and I guess that will change depending on each investor, because they all have their own nuances that are relevant to them.
And the biggest thing probably is, not biggest thing, but one of the important things is, are you raising enough to buy yourself enough time to prove something? And is that time frame realistic to deliver something? So if you're raising 300,000, 500,000, and you think that's going to last you 3 months, well, that's not enough time. You need to raise more. That's probably one of the biggest reasons for me to walk away from something, is that you're just not raising enough to be able to demonstrate sufficient value to raise that next round. You haven't got enough time to raise that next round.
Because you usually want to get to another milestone before you
Correct.
do the next
Exactly right.
fundraise.
Yeah. Valuation, we haven't really touched upon that, but I think if a founder has unrealistic expectations from a valuation perspective, that's probably will cause me to walk away.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That wraps up our tips under 10. All the details will be in the show notes on your preferred podcast platform.
Thanks, David.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.